There's Jim. Jim, can we hear you?
Hope so.
Yes.
Yep.
That's better.
Good.
Turn my volume down.
Were we,
Yeah.
let's see. I'm wondering whether we should wait a minute or not. See whether
Sure.
Mike shows up.
Have you been skiing, John?
Every day.
Every day? Well, good for you. At Prospect? At Prospect?
It's 73 days so far.
Wow. Wow. How are you, Bill? What's new in your life, Bill?
Well, Alice, I hate to say this, but as an old guy, nothing much is new. Although Cinda and I were interviewed for a book that someone's writing on the Blue Bin.
On the what? On the what?
The Blue Bin Diner.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and the reason why is the wait staff remembered one Valentine's Day, I brought a candle to the Blue Bin, and Cinda and I had a Valentine's Day dinner at the Blue Bin. And they were the only ones there. It was a Tuesday or something when they were open. And they turned the lights down. They locked the doors. The wait staff put romantic music on the jukebox, and we had dinner.
Oh my
So they
God,
told that
wonderful.
story. They told that story about the book. So we got interviewed about it anyway.
Oh, I'm going to tell my husband as soon as I leave what a romantic guy you are.
That's right.
Oh, that's my wife. She'll tell you.
Oh God, I usually cook the dinner. God.
One of the terms she uses for me, usually with an expletive in the middle somewhere.
Yeah, that's a great story. Wonderful story.
Actually, it was perverted sense of humor more than anything else, I think, that triggered it initially. But yeah, so anyway, we spent, and Peter Crabtree took our photographs. So anyway, we'll see what happens.
Nice. Who's writing the book?
That's a good question. I've forgotten her name because I'm terrible with names. Londa Wiseman commissioned the book anyway. Do you know Londa?
Yeah, I have a pot here.
Commissioned the book. So we had the interview at her house.
Hi, TR.
It was fun. You know, the lady was very interesting. I wish I remember her name, but very interesting. She has lived in England and Spain and now lives in the Bennington area. Had a very nice conversation with her. Oh, there's TR Paquin.
Morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Hi, TR.
Hi, Alice.
Well, the Blue Bin has been sold, right? I mean, it's not open or anything, but I'm hoping it'll reopen.
Yesterday, an article came out
In the paper today.
Oh, great.
that it's opening on Valentine's Day.
Oh, perfect.
Oh, goodness. That seems
I'll bring
like
my calendar.
that seems like that's right in the middle of the pandemic.
It's kind of a small space. Like
The counter, my God.
I don't know. All I saw is that they were opening, so I don't know what exactly that means.
Maybe
I just looked at the paper when I went down to get it. It's some indication of installing plexiglass partitions. So I don't know how that's all going to work. But anyway, yeah, it is what it is.
If you all need a good pandemic meal where you don't have to go inside the Fuji place, the Japanese place has
Asian
some
bistro.
brisk. Yeah, they have some brisk business.
Mm-hmm.
We picked up some dinner there a few days ago, and it's great. Like you don't even go inside. They
just pick up. Yeah.
Crafted like this double door sliding window system with a little counter, and their portions are huge. I ate like less than half of my meal.
Where is that, Jenica?
It's Northside Drive. It's in between
The
McDonald's.
pool place. It's right behind the pool place, right in front of the pool place.
What's the name of it?
Fuji Asian Bistro.
Oh.
And they have their menu online too. It's enormous.
Good. Thanks.
I really like the avocado rolls.
Ooh, I love avocados.
We've been getting meals from Scott and Lisa Carino, who are over in, I don't know, exact Cambridge, I guess you'd say. They used to run a restaurant over there, and they're now taking orders for they have menus, and it's a fixed menu. You know, you get one particular entree and a dessert. So we've been getting, and they do pizzas and things. So we've been getting food from them about once a week as well. So.
Do you drive to Cambridge?
Yeah, we just drive over. Cindy typically drives over there to where they're not in town. It's at their home, and they deliver it to your car. So
Yeah, nice. Well, if we're talking food, if you like Raimundo's on Wednesday has, you know, a 2-for-1, which sometimes, you know, restaurants give you like the drink or the dessert, but they actually give you a second meal. And you can, yeah, it's really, at first I thought, wow, this must be because Stan gets pizza there so much, but it's not. And you can design like your own pasta dish. It's mostly pasta, but you can put, you know, 3 vegetables on your pasta, and it is 2-for-1. So if the meal is $14, the second meal is free. It seems like,
whoa,
yeah, quite a not a giveaway, but a deal. It's only on Wednesday.
On Wednesday?
Only Wednesdays.
Have you had a meal from Mrs. Ghosh in Bennington, Indian food?
No,
Delicious.
Oh, and
absolutely delicious. More expensive than that, but treat yourself to a good meal. She really is a good cook.
Is she doing catering?
You have to go pick it up.
Okay.
She makes it. You put your order in over the phone or maybe online, and she tells you when to pick it up.
Wow.
What's her business name?
Oh, Mrs. Ghosh.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Well, maybe Alice would give us that number.
Yeah, I'll have to send you that number. I have to find it. She sometimes advertises on Front Porch Forum. Sometimes.
The Country Club also has got, you know, they have meals now.
She's related to Dr. Go. She's related somehow. She might be his sister. I'm not sure.
There's Brian Campion.
Are you talking about the Indian?
Yes.
Oh,
here's Senator Campion.
Hi, Senator Campion.
Morning, Brian.
Morning. How's everybody?
Hey, Brian.
Good.
Hi, Brian.
Well, we should get started, guys. We've waited to see if anybody else would come, and we usually do a pledge of allegiance to the flag. Maybe Ron, you can do that.
Yeah.
All right. I pledge allegiance
to the flag
of
the United States of
America
and to the republic
which it stands,
one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. 4-way test. The things we say and do. Jim, you can do that. Are you talking? You're muted, I see.
Okay. The 4-way test of the things we think, say, and do. First, is it
the
truth?
Second.
To all concern.
Third,
will it build goodwill and better friendships? Fourth, will it be beneficial to all concerned? Okay. All right. Well, we are kind of lucky today to have the senator here. We can abuse him about the all the things that are going on with the COVID, and we all know Brian, so I'm excited. Jenica, did you? You're muted.
We should congratulate Brian.
Yes.
He's become chair of the Senate Education Committee.
Yes.
Oh, wow.
So should I kick things off, Jenica?
Yes, please.
Jump in.
All right. Well, thanks for having me. It's good to be here. It's good to see all of you. Doesn't look like I pull a big crowd.
You're
I
in
hope
good
this
company.
but it's a great crowd. Yeah, so a few things I thought I might update everybody on. I thought I'd start with Senate Education. I am the new chair. I had served on Senate Finance for the past 4 years, and now on Senate Education, which is great transition. Things overall are going, I think, well. The big thing that we're working on right now is, as you'll hear from everybody, and I know you had Dick in not long ago, we had, we're dealing with COVID. We're trying, everybody is in every committee working to figure out how best to meet the needs of Vermonters as it relates to COVID. And so that's first and foremost. So as that relates to my committee, this afternoon, we're continuing testimony on what's happening in our schools, what kinds of possible deficits might young people be having, experiencing, and come out of COVID with come May and June, as we kind of maybe start to transition a little bit back to normal next fall. So I think what we're going to be, I think what people are going to continue to propose is some kind of academic and mental health, if you will, supportive actions for the summer. And by that, I mean, not everyone has suffered during this time. We all know families that it's worked out for. They've either been able to be online, there's a parent at home, they may have had been able to hire extra tutoring. But we also know that there are children that really have and will be coming out of this with academic deficits. So we're looking for summer opportunities. We're going to hear from a number of different educational partners throughout the state today on what that's going to look like, what kind of options might be there for families. And the other side of this is also for some children, the trauma that they've experienced and the mental health supports they might need and what that might look like. So we're partnering with Health and Human Services Committee to see what kinds of supports, again, students are going to need during the summer and also going forward. So that's something that we're working on. Related to that, and always feel free to just interrupt as I'm going along if you want to have more of a conversation. Related to that, we're also looking at issues of literacy in the state. Right now, third graders across the board are really, only about half of them are reading at grade level. And I think we'd all agree that's absolutely unacceptable. So what's happening? How can we make improvements? Those early years are essential. They set us all on the path for how we're going to do going forward. And making certain that you're reading at grade level is absolutely essential to future success. So what we're doing now is we're also taking testimony to try to address that issue. What is it that we need? Is it more literacy experts in the schools? Is it greater accountability? Is it more people at the Agency of Education that can go out and train teachers? I mean, this is sort of a decades-long problem, and Vermont's not an anomaly. This has happened in other states, but other states are really starting to come out of it. Low income, what we would consider poor states like Mississippi, they've now turned their literacy rates around or are starting to. And Vermont, as you know, is a high per pupil spender. So the money's there, the resources are there, but there is definitely a disconnect. And part of it might be, what we suspect is how literacy is being taught, that there might need to be some retraining. We also have to look at our teacher education programs to see how teachers are being taught to teach reading. So these are all issues that that we're working on. The other thing I'll add, Dick Sears and a few colleagues put in what's called a school discipline bill. What we've seen throughout the United States and also here in Vermont is exclusionary discipline practices. In other words, students that are suspended or expelled at a young age, or even as a teenager or a high school student. And once those kinds of things happen, I'm just thinking of myself, if I'd been sent home for a week, at any point, it's not only traumatic, but you get behind academically and a lot of kids can't catch up. And, when those kinds of things happen, more and more research is showing that you've got a, you're really creating this sort of school discipline to prison pipeline. It's something that sticks with kids throughout their lives. So how do we work around those kinds of things? How do we keep kids in school? And of course, there's going to be, everybody knows there's going to be the exception to the rule. There's going to be an extreme situation when a student needs to leave school, but needs to find another educational opportunity. And so that is another piece of legislation that we're working on. Something that this group might be particularly interested in is civic education. I think annually, at least since I've been in the legislature, and Alice may remember this as well, it seems every year somebody puts in a bill around civic education. I think we definitely recognize the need out there, that there needs to be more education, not only around the history of the country and its founding documents, but really how to become an active citizen in our democracy. And without a doubt, spurred on by what happened in DC last month, some of the other sort of symptoms of a democracy failing, a bill has been put in to again require that students graduate with a class in civics. And where my committee is falling on this is really, we've had a lot of interesting people come in, and I highly recommend, if you're interested in this topic, go back and take a look at some of the testimony we heard, particularly from a woman by the name of Mira Levinson at Harvard Education School, that talked about, what you need to really do is get young kids to do civics. In other words, to get kids how to read, to get kids to write, to get kids how to play sports. You always have them doing these things. And civics, that isn't the case, but we really need to get young people doing civics, and by that, volunteering, getting young people to vote, getting kids involved with their legislators, getting kids involved, going to select board meetings, petitions, all those kinds of things, really getting young kids out there so that they can really understand how they can, start to play a role in these kinds of issues. So that's something else. The other, and I'll just keep going, Jenica, and let you know other things that are coming up. There is an issue for the lawyers in the room, an issue as it relates to separation of church and state. You probably know the courts have said that Vermont can indeed and needs to give tuition dollars in choice towns to religious institutions. We're trying as I think many of us, the majority of the committee, I would say, believes that this is a violation of church and state, but it is something that the courts have decided, and now we're trying to put some guardrails around this decision. In other words, if you're in a choice town and you're deciding to go to a certain religious institution for high school, those dollars do need to go with you, but they were trying to find ways to put some guardrails around so they don't go for religious instruction. Very hard thing to do. I would even argue impossible to do. I mean, you're not going to be able to prevent a young person from seeing, certain kinds of religious, having religious experiences, if you will, or at least seeing religious, I don't know, for lack of a better expression, sort of advertising or marketing. In a school, for example, you might see, some of our concerns are, if a school takes a political position on that's either anti-LGBTQ or anti, women's right to choose, these are their philosophies, these are their positions. But there is many of us consider a real line there around what can be taught and what shouldn't be taught, and what dollars should go for, taxpayer dollars should go for, to support these kinds of things. So it's a larger, broader conversation, but in short, what we're trying to do is put up some guardrails to try to keep that line there between church and state. So then, so that's my afternoon committee. And those are, again, some of the things, we're working on. In the morning, I serve on natural resources and energy. And really, since we got back, the biggest thing that been working on is a weatherization bill. The governor's we're committed to weatherizing roughly 120,000 homes over the next 10 years, middle and low income homes. This is It's a complicated for a lot of people process to get their home weatherized. It's an expensive process, but it certainly is healthier for the family, healthier for the environment. Certainly saves people money. So that is something that we've spent a lot of time on. We'll also jump into Act 250. Many of you may recall we had. We're sort of assessing Act 250 now that it's a little, basically 50 years old. Where are some of the areas that we can streamline? How can we continue to incentivize construction downtown? We want, as we know in the state, small, tight downtowns. We don't want sprawl. We want to preserve our natural landscape. Many of us would really attribute Act 250 to look to why the state is so beautiful as it is today. Because again, we've worked to keep our downtowns tight. We want to continue to incentivize construction and building in those downtowns. We know young people come, more and more are interested in living downtown. They're not like maybe people my age or older that, wanted a little land, they wanted a little more property. They might want to have a few, 10 or 20 acres up in the Northeast Kingdom. A lot of young people are heading into urban areas. They are looking to possibly live with friends, looking to be able to, to have a walkable life. And that's something that we're trying to certainly incentivize doing in Vermont, with a particular eye for me, at least in our downtown area with the Putnam Project. Let me think, a couple of other things that I jotted down. I think people are aware that of everything that's happening with the vaccination rollout. I think we have a great person at the helm in Dr. Mark Levine. I mean, I know people are concerned with how, different populations not getting the vaccine right away, but, Mark continues to say, and I support him in that, of course, we have a limited number of vaccines that are coming into the state. He has to prioritize, and the group that makes the most sense are those that are, starting with 75 and older and then going down in increments of 5. And that's the way at this point. If we get more vaccines in, I think you'll see some change. I know you'll see some change. There'll be some more attention to people on the front lines as it relates to maybe grocery store workers, teachers, folks like that. But right now, I know Mark is doing his best with the number of vaccines that he has in dealing with the population that we have here in Vermont. But of course, if you have concerns, if you have questions, we have a great Department of Health.
I have Brian, I'd like to just interject
Sure,
something
please.
I talked to the group about just a few minutes ago. There are people who are very handicapped, over 75, in their homes, can't get out, who privately hire caregivers to take care of them. And neither the person at home nor the caregivers can get the vaccine. This happened in my home, and one caregiver who was hired privately got the virus someplace and became very, very ill. Bless her heart, she realized that she'd been exposed to it at a restaurant where she was working on the weekend. And she called my home and said, I'm not coming because I just heard I've been exposed, but I'm sure I'm fine. I feel just great. She went and got a test at the hospital. Sure enough, she has the virus. She's been deathly ill at home since that happened. So my question is, what can we do? What can you do to help us get protection for people at home, to have people come into the home and to get the vaccine to both that person and to caregivers of homebound people?
Yeah, I mean, I'm happy to write to Dr. Levine and let him know that situation. And, again, continue to what I've been doing with everyone who's concerned, making him aware. And, he's made himself so available to all of us, which is, you might even have him come here at some point or have somebody from the Department of Health. I know Megan Harrington is this person on the ground here. I think she would be willing, I'm sure, and excited to answer questions and also take ideas. But I'm happy to to forward that up, Alice. You know, it's one of those things that what we're doing is just, we continue to let Dr. Levine know what we're seeing and what people's concerns are. As you know, it's not, and nor does it make sense for it to be, for legislators to be debating who gets what and when. It really is an executive decision. And I respect that, but I think, you know, hearing situations like the one that you just mentioned is helpful to Dr. Levine and his team. So I'm happy to have him come in, and I'm happy to share that. And I'm happy to help facilitate in any way somebody from the Department of Health coming to Rotary to start to you know, kind of take questions and also help people understand why they're rolling things out the way they are.
Well, we have a very elderly population in Vermont, and here as well. So I'm sure that I'm not the only person who's experienced this problem. I'm sure there must be other elderly people who are not getting help at home and who can't get out because of it. But thank you, Brian. I appreciate that very much.
But Alice, is part of it the people that aren't able to get out and they need to get the vaccination in their home?
That's correct.
Okay.
That's correct.
All right. That's good to know. Okay. Because I know there were some partnerships and some, or people were talking about, you know, partnering with the rescue squad and groups like that and going to people's homes. So if that's not happening, I'll definitely let them know.
I called VNA.
Yeah.
And they said, yeah, they'd be willing to do it, but they haven't been given any vaccines.
Okay. Okay.
Thanks, Brian.
Yeah. Brian, back to the schools, which you're now chair of, the there is some concern on many people's parts that we don't have kids going to high schools here. And is there something they're trying to do about that? I mean, I happen to think that there should be more classes and found ways to get them to wear masks. They do it in other states pretty successfully. Because I think we're hurting, like you said, literacy will not improve if we keep them out of school.
Yeah. So you're saying, John, that students, you're concerned that there are high school students that just aren't in part showing up right now?
Yeah, and they're not doing, I mean, I've had them actually here, and they don't listen to a thing on the Zoom. You know, I mean, they don't.
No.
They're playing a game on their phone while the Zoom is going.
Hey, Brian, is this a function of the teachers union?
No, I don't. I mean, the teachers unions are involved in these conversations, and we're going to hear from them this afternoon around what, you know, some of their ideas for lack of a better, you know, word, remediation this summer.
But they're not showing up to work.
Huh. I mean,
they just don't want to, I mean, they don't want to get sick.
Yeah.
And they don't want to teach, and the kids are suffering.
Yeah, you know, so the person I should probably reach out to is I think his last name is Nixon, the principal at the high school, and just get a sense from him what he's experiencing. I mean, I haven't, for what it's worth, superintendents and principals, and granted, we've only been back there a few weeks in committee, but we haven't been hearing that from people. That's not to say it's not happening. I'm not surprised in some ways. Of course, kids aren't getting on Zoom, and they're like anybody, you know, they're just doing other things, and they're trying to, some of them are dialing it in, and some can dial it in. In other words, they're smart kids. They're going to be fine. They're, you know, going forward. But other kids, they're going to be real deficits. But go ahead.
Yeah. I just heard a story about the teacher. So the students have certain number of days that they show up to the school, and other days they Zoom. And the teacher didn't show up to the in-service day. So the students went to the class and were Zooming with the teacher from inside this school. This is insane.
Yeah. I mean, that's something that
the teachers, they're not showing up.
But Ron, I think that would be a my guess is that what is a unusual case, what you're talking about.
I know that.
What I'm not a teacher, but I know a bunch, and from what I hear from them on Facebook and whatnot, I think most teachers are working even harder because they have to do in-person as well as hybrid teaching, and to do hybrid teaching is really tough. So I mean, there's going to be
and
odd out cases, but
Brian, what I don't understand is, and I was a teacher, and I do realize that hybrid is very complicated. I don't understand why it's so different in different places. So my kids in Burlington went to school 4.5 days a week. That was now they're in Jericho and they're going 5 days a week on the bus. Off they go. My friends in Providence, which is a large urban area with so much diversity, they are multi-generations, they have never not gone to school. So they are in school 5 days a week in that system. The governor was very insistent. She put the money into all of the supplies that you need, which I think we could do. I don't understand why those kids in a large urban area are in school 5 days a week. And we here in Bennington, in a small, nothing compared to those, are not in school. And I do worry about those kids.
I worry about,
I do not understand. I saw them all pull out yesterday. It must have been a day for school. I don't understand why kids are going home at 2 o'clock from the middle school. There's no one home. When you're restructuring all this, just think about the length of that day. I know they go in early. I don't even know why they go in that early. It's all about busing. 2 o'clock is too early to have kids go home. So
I agree. Especially for families and kids that there's nothing back there. It's an empty house, or so back to the question around, why is it different everywhere? The governor has made the decision that, these will be, every town will do it based on their numbers, every superintendent, every school board will take these different things into consideration and make a decision. My uncle is the principal of an elementary school up in the Northeast Kingdom. And I think they've been in school, their district in Hardwick, I think they have tried to keep things going. I mean, Hardwick's a small community. They've, monitored things. They too, I think, have made the investment where they've needed to in masks, et cetera. And it's an elementary school. Now, elementary schools, Dr. Levine will tell you, and I think others will say, this is not where a lot of transmission happens. I mean, believe it or not, I mean, I thought all these little guys and gals going back to school would be an absolute nightmare, but because of course, how do you keep them away from each other? But it doesn't look like that's where transmissions happen. So I know at least in some elementary schools, they have been able to keep things going. And that's really probably the most important. But I share your concern. There is a movement on both ends of the spectrum in terms of schooling with regard to longer days and more time. There's an after school movement in this state, and it's definitely gained some ground. And I know the governor was talking about possibly putting in some dollars for, from our cannabis funds, to fund after school programs in those districts that need those kinds of things the most. The other end, there's a big push, and I think we're going to make some progress on this year, looking at what happens in those 0 to 5 years. In other words, at the very, these are two different things. One's school day, the other's, actual age, but trying to make certain that, students and families, young children, 0 to 5, have access to affordable, safe, high quality early childhood education. It's, we're going to try to pass a bill this year that will kind of get us in that direction. I'd be happy to have the director of a group called Let's Grow for Kids, Allie Richards, come in and just talk to you. We have there's some big proponents of this locally, Dimitri Gardner and others that feel as though, their businesses in a way are being held up because They don't have the workforce. And part of the workforce not having it is because there's nowhere for families to go for early childhood care, that's 0 to 5. You see models in this country and in Canada where states and provinces have really instituted those kinds of things. And it's brought workers in. It's brought people in knowing that they can have, they're not going to be spending, a third of their income on early childhood. So that's, I just wanted to throw that out as another issue, another thing that we're looking at. And I'd be happy to, again, Jenica, as you're looking for speakers, point Allie in your direction. But I do want to go back, if you don't mind, just for a moment. I don't know if there's a way for Rotary just to think about partnering with the state around civic education. I'd be happy to send you some of the links to some of the speakers we've heard from. I mean, there is a problem out there, young children, young kids, and we're talking kindergarten through 12th grade. There has to be a robust civic education experience. And everybody agrees it's missing. And the evidence in the research shows that it's missing, but fixing it with just one course isn't the way I think we need to approach this. There has to be a more integral, more, again, kindergarten through 12th grade experience and getting kids involved. So just something to keep in mind, given, Rotary's history and experience, it might be something that Rotary might be interested in, even partnering with local schools on some of these issues.
Brian?
Yeah.
Highland Hall School, which is a private non-sectarian elementary school, as I'm sure you're familiar with it, has a program they call Town. And every year, all of the students across the grade spectrum participate in a local government thing, and they deal with the issues of budget, taxation, voting, criminal activity. And it sounds really interesting. I've never seen
Eli loves it.
Really?
Oh, okay.
Town is a highlight.
I even love the name, Town. I think that's great. Yeah, I'll definitely reach out to Highland Hall and see if I can find some information.
Yeah, they have a great faculty there. We know because we're friends with one of the former, or we're the former founder of the school. But it sounds like a very interesting program, and I think it's a good model to at least look at. I don't know if it has all the answers or not. Now that I get the floor, I'm going to say I think teachers should be a priority group for vaccination to get people back to school.
Yeah.
The other thing I'd point out, New York Times Sunday had an article on the effect of the COVID crisis on moms, working moms, who have to stay home, who now have children to care for, who are trying to educate their children, trying to do their jobs. It's a pretty interesting article about the social impact of all this. So Fisk is out. I'm done.
No, but you're right. Well, I've heard a lot from teachers. It is one of the big issues we're going to be facing, and already we're seeing it, is how do you get young people into this profession? I mean, it's especially in a rural state. And I was talking to people about it yesterday, and it's a real concern. It's, you're not making a lot of money. You've got a lot of work. It's not, we've created in such a way where there isn't always a lot of opportunity for collaboration. You're leaving school with debt, and you're not making a lot of money to pay it back. And it's a big issue. It's, you get turnover. All of a sudden, somebody's teaching for a few years, they might be great, then they're going to Google, or they're going to, some other job. They're going to write textbooks. They're making more money. And you need consistency. You need good teachers in the classroom who really want to make a career out of it. Just thinking back to when I was a kid, the elementary school teacher, all of them, these were lifetime dedicated professionals. And I know we have those people today also, but we are seeing more and more turnover, and not only in teachers, but principals and superintendents. And, we need to get good people and keep good people. And otherwise and I think that's part of the problem, the reason that we're seeing these literacy numbers right now is you're just getting turnover, you're getting people in, you're getting people out. And that's hurting kids.
Brian, could I say something? Because, retired maybe 10 years ago, but I do go back to the schools for a program, a very hands-on program. I can come in with a beaver skull, you know, so it's a very hands-on program. And then in the last 5 years, I've seen more disruptive behavior, as everybody has seen.
Yeah.
And some of the teachers you're losing, I know we lost a really good second grade teacher, and it was really because of disruptive behavior. And I've sort of given a lot of thought to this because I've listened to a lot of teachers, you know. So, you know, really the time for listening is over about the disruptive kids in class. And I've come to think that, you know, the idea of expelling kids doesn't work, that some of those kids simply need a different model.
Yeah.
Model that we have, well, you must think of this, Jim, too. The model that we have for a certain percent of our kids who have increased is not working for them.
Yeah.
And then we should stop, you know, the whining, the frustration. We must go to another model. So that's my 2 cents after listening to this for about 5 years.
I don't know if Jim wants to say anything about that, but yeah, I mean, I think you're right. I mean, that there's certain behaviors in classrooms that, you know, a teacher just cannot teach.
And it is driving them out.
Yeah,
you know, it is driving them out. So it's time for a different model, of course, not for all the kids, but there's a little higher percent of them now, which makes teaching a bit of a problem.
Yeah, I mean, obviously we see it in our group, but I think that's just a general thing that not everybody learns the same manner. And to put everybody into classrooms, you know, just doesn't work for a lot of people.
No, it doesn't. And more of them now.
Brian?
Yes.
You might want to invite Holly Morehouse, the after-school coordinator, to talk to you about her experiences in Iceland.
Yeah, Holly came in. They were really interesting.
In Finland.
Yeah.
They have houses that kids go to after school. Most of their education takes place outside, which we could do really well in Vermont. And they never give up on a child. If there's a child who's having very difficult problems, they never give up. And a whole team of people come in and work on that kid until that kid is well. And it's very successful. Their teachers never leave. There's very little turnover. They get paid very high salaries, and they have incredible academic success. So I would suggest talking to her if you haven't already.
Yeah, we had a good conversation with Holly about, you know, expanding after school. She's certainly passionate about it. I mean, as everybody here knows, a lot of these things come down to money. And there are certain things that we as a small state with a small population are able to financially afford. I mean, we are getting help, as you know, from the feds as it relates to CARES. And I think we all can't thank Senator Leahy enough for everything that he did for that first round and even second round. And now, you know, we're trying to partner with him, and you know, certainly he's keeping, helping us, as I'm sure, as much as he can as it relates to him being now the chair of appropriations. But you know, Alice, even look at our state colleges right now. You know, it's tough to compete with Cuomo, and he's got a lot more money, and he's able to do things like, say, you know, lower tuition at state colleges and make their community colleges almost free. That's hurting Vermont's state colleges, as you can imagine, because for years, kids from the Albany Capital District area would head to Johnson, head to Castleton. But now financially, it just makes sense for them to stay at Hudson Valley for a couple of years, go to RPI, go to SUNY Albany. Same thing's happening in New Hampshire. So some of this is a resource issue. And, you know, it's there are things that we can do and prioritize. And they're just, you know,
well, Brian, sometimes it's a resource issue, but there are many things, as Kathy said, about looking at the model, changing the way you do things. For example, with civics education, it doesn't cost any money, but I remember in one school, in fact, it was my graduate school that had not only a teacher training program, but also a school for kids K to 12.
Yeah.
And for civic education, they let the kids go on strike with the cafeteria who were serving mashed potatoes that they didn't want served anymore because they didn't think it was healthy. They went through an incredibly elaborate procedure about how to do that and how to stop the cook, and so they met with the cook. They had they just did all kinds of wonderful things to make that happen, and they did make it happen. They stopped serving mashed potatoes. But that's a real civics lesson about how to make how to do that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. No, there's no question about it. No question about it. There are things that are going to take resources and money. And, you know, right now, many of us are also focused on broadband expansion. How can we do this with federal dollars as well as, you know, possibly bonding, you know, so, but all these things, as you know, Alice, there are all these competing issues up there, and how to fund,
I know.
How to make it happen.
Very difficult. Yeah. How can we link into the Senate Education and House Education Committee and watch what's going on?
Sure. So it's on the, if you go to the legislative website, you can watch the proceedings live every day, but there's also a history there. You can go back and watch all of the committee meetings.
Wow, that'd be great.
Yeah.
Good, thanks.
So we only have an hour left. Any other questions?
I still would like to push for the legislature or your education department to get more kids back to school.
Yeah.
Because I don't think most of those parents, and there may be exceptions where they don't want a child to go there because the mother has immune problems or something, you know, there can be exceptions to it, but most of those people can send their children to school. And even if someone does get sick, hopefully not, but if they do, we're not going to have, you know, they'll be all right after they get better.
Yeah.
So, and I think that it is so detrimental from what little I've seen. Kids here sitting where I'm sitting right now on Zoom, I'm telling you, they aren't learning anything.
Yeah.
And these are the kids that need somebody to teach them. I'm not worried about the kid that Zooms in and is, you know, a straight A student. He's going to do just fine. I'm not worried about that. But the rest of them need schooling.
Yeah. No, you're right. You know, the governor did say that he is trying to push to get everybody back at the end of March, early April. And I know Levine is also focused on that deadline. And so, and then of course, if there are outbreaks in certain districts, you're
right.
Have to recess. But you're right. And there are, you know, lack of a better, I mean, there are winners and losers out of this. There are kids that are, you know, just doing fine. They're home, they're on Zoom, they're smart kids, they're doing their thing, they're motivated. And then there are kids that just are really going to be struggling. And so one of the things we hope to pull apart this afternoon, if anybody wants to watch at 1 o'clock, is this issue. What is it? What kind of proposals would make a difference? What kind of ideas are going to happen this summer to start to work to address some of these deficits? And, you know, it's going to be on teachers and parents and school personnel to identify those that need it. You know, John Goodrich might not need it, but Brian Campion really might need to spend a summer, you know, in summer school, you know, and so again, it's not going to necessarily be something for everybody, but for those that need it, hopefully it'll be there.
Okay. Well, thank you. Thank you.
You know, Brian, I don't know if everybody, I've always been kind of impressed that Pownell, it's a budget. Their summer program is a ballot.
Yeah, that's right.
Yes, and they vote, I think they give $5,000 to the preschool, and they give, I'm not sure what it costs to run there. They used to call it a rec program, but some of it is academic, and it is a ballot issue.
Interesting. Yeah. And that's could certainly be here. Yeah.
With communities would do that.
Yeah. The other thing I'll just leave you with to think about, you know, we do have a bill in. It's interesting. You know, people put bills in. Some people think, it's not going to be, you know, that particularly interesting or controversial. I think I knew it was going to be a bit of a storm, but this is you know, we have these school resource officers throughout the state. Schools have police officers in their schools, and, you know, for safety, for education, all these kinds of things. And so senator from Addison County and a couple from Burlington put in a bill saying, no more, you know, no more school resource officers. The evidence is showing that it tends to be, having them there tends to be a negative experience for students of color and disabled students. And it's just been really interesting hearing from local schools. And to be honest, you know, it's not something we can take up at this point, given COVID, but it's just been interesting. It sounds like there are some really, you know, wonderful and committed and school resource officers out there in our community that people are really passionate about keeping, you know. You know, I heard from a couple schools that, you know, they just really love their school resource officer. He or she's a big part of the school. I know we've heard from Fairhaven, where you may recall a couple of years ago, there was a student had planned a shooting. Their school resource officer is really seen as the first line of defense up there. It just makes people, whether or not it's accurate, but that perception gives people comfort. Just sort of an interesting thing for people to think about. You know, again, the research nationwide and even up, I think, up in the Winooski area shows that, you know, SROs aren't always a good fit for schools. But, you know, locally, I've heard from some principals and others that are really, again, interested and committed to their SRO. So just something out there.
Brian, I tend to agree with you on the resource officers. Actually, Sarah came home yesterday pretty distraught because she had heard the rumor about the resource officers from the budget. And she says that their gentleman is part of the Shaftesbury community.
Yeah.
And he interacts with the kids on a high level. And in fact, he, you know, I guess maybe one of his functions is a truancy officer to check up on the kids that aren't showing up for their Zoom meetings.
Right.
Because he goes out of his way to go to their house to check on them and bring them their assignments.
Yeah. No, I heard from Shaftesbury. Yeah, I've heard from a number of people, and that's what, you know, it's you know, it's just an example of something that you can say, hey, here's the research, here's what's happening. Sure, and it's happening in some schools, some difficulties. And remember, a school can always get rid of a resource officer. It doesn't have to be a state decision. But, you know, hearing from people in Shaftesbury, I actually am eager to meet this individual because it sounds like he or she's been a big part of the community up there. Kids, I think it's a man, love him, and it's been a good fit for the school.
Yeah, the one I knew was like a therapist. The guy that I had spoken to, he was at MAU, but he's in Palo now. He had such a nice way with kids. Really, maybe even better than some of the psychologists there. He was like a therapist because he had seen such a wide variety of kids. The kids he was dealing with needed him as opposed to the school counselor.
Right.
So you can't throw everything out. Just
no, I know. And again, these are, you know, we can keep it. I think it probably makes sense for this just to stay at a local decision, you know.
Yeah, I think you're right, Brian.
Yeah. So. Okay.
Well, thank you very much,
everybody.
Thank you.
If you ever have other ideas for speakers, let me know. I can send some people your way.
That would be great.
Thank you, Brian.
We're looking for speakers.
Brian.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you, Brian.
Thank you very much.
It was great, Brian. Thank you.
John, on the speaker topic, don't forget that you're
I know.
Speaker for.
I know.
I'm having an awful lot of trouble lately. This group right here is not the problem, but everybody else in the club that doesn't show up for meetings or doesn't like to Zoom, you know, almost to a T, they're saying, I really don't want to help you find one. So a lot of the speakers we've had weekly, I've been digging up at the last minute when I finally get a hold of members who say, you know, well, I'm not there, so I don't want to.
Yeah.
Well, I was hoping to get somebody actually, although I do think the idea of getting Megan Harrington here would be great just because of COVID, but, and I can try that. I was going to get somebody from the town because we haven't heard that much about the Putnam since it finally is open, you know, and I'd love to see somebody tell me more about how many people are there or what's actually happening downstairs. I just haven't.
That's a good idea. Yeah, that's very interesting.
So, well, Mike McKenna would be a possible source for the healthcare development of
you're right,
Southern Vermont College campus. And I also suggested that whole debacle with GameStop. He might be an interesting speaker on that subject too. Wow. So you got a couple of topics.
That's right.
Thanks for the ideas.
A very good topic because that's interesting concept as to what's going on there. That's a battle.
And TR and Jim, you got my email about the other clubs, or you could check it. I think I sent it last night. They have a 4 o'clock Zoom with somebody. Did you get that, Jim? I sent you something.
Yeah, I got it, Kathy, and I was going to forward it later today. I didn't want to forward it last night.
Oh, no, that's fine. Yeah,
there's confusion into our weekly schedule.
Right, they seem to be zooming.
Yeah.
Okay.
You know, I'm kind of surprised to hear that there are members who don't want to participate in Zoom, and the speakers. I have found that the speakers we've had have just been terrific and informative, and I've learned so much from listening to this. I'm surprised. What is the difference between our meetings, other than not having breakfast, than what we're doing now? I don't get it. Why have they participated in these Zoom meetings and not liked them, or they just decided it's not a good way to do business as a Rotarian? What are we hearing from these members?
I don't know. I think there's a degree of discomfort with using computer interaction. It is different. I mean, I've had years where I've got a lot of continuing education through this, so it's nothing really new to me.
Sure.
Learning the technology as an organizer is complicated. I just had a bad experience with using a different meeting platform, GoToMeeting. It's a fiasco from my point of view. Zoom is fine.
Yeah, I don't understand. I mean, look at the speakers we've had. The fellow on the whole spam and taking of people. Yeah. Gosh, it's just been so interesting and helpful.
And that's kudos to TR.
So do you know if these people who don't want to participate did participate and did not like what they were learning or hearing? Does anybody know?
No, most of the Rotarians that don't want to find speakers are the ones we don't see every week here on our meetings. So
why don't they want to come to the meetings though? Did they ever say?
I don't know. And I've run into 3 or 4 that said that they've taken a leave of absence until COVID was over. And that was the reason that they didn't want to help find the speakers. But quite a few of the speakers, the District 7870, which we're a part of, on their website, they have a list of speakers who are willing to present on Zoom on all different kind of topics. And usually if I run into trouble, I go right to that list, like the gentleman that spoke about the spam and other stuff a few weeks ago.
Terrific.
The day
was great
from that list. And our John is on next week, and the following week, there was another member who didn't want to find a speaker because they don't participate in the Zoom. So I went back to that Rotary list, and I have found another speaker who's going to talk about COVID and how to keep your immunity system up and prepared for COVID. So I did what I could.
Okay, that's great, TR.
Yeah.
TR, you've done a great job.
Oh, I think
Thanks, Bill.
Yes, you have, TR.
Yeah. And there's a little joy in going outside and shoveling the car. I think it's easier, you know. Sometimes you roll over in the early morning, winter morning, and then you just stagger downstairs with your coffee. I think it's easier.
So easy. It's so easy, I tell you. I mean,
I know.
Pleasant. Good questions you guys ask. I mean, just.
I mean, for God's sakes, it's snowing out there again.
Yes, it's snowing. I see it.
Well, I'm going to leave you and get back to work.
Okay. Thank you, everybody.
We'll see you all next week.
Have a good week.
You too.
Bye-bye.